Okay, hello everybody. I know I'm in the sun here. Oh, I just want to do a little update. This is the first time I've had Claire. Claire and Crow, I'm with them both. It's the first time Claire has seen my little
Hello.
prayer yard, and I've done a few fellowships out here before. Now, before I forget, I showed it to Crow. That's why it's reminding me. A while back, I mentioned how Mike Schweikert came by one night, and I think you could see it. And he just bought this for me. Mike is the friend of ours, actually, that did our tattoos. Me and Crow, the only two right so far that's got them both. That was a nice gift. And so I figured I'll talk a little bit. Claire, I do want to give you this. This isn't a joke. Now, Sweet Pea, Connie, she gave me some nice gifts about a year ago, but I hope you're not upset. I felt sometimes I give things away and friends give things to me. But this is called the Tree of Life. And Connie or Sweet Pea made this herself. And she gave me two. I still have the other one. But I've given away a lot of things, and sometimes even things people give me. So I want you to have that, Claire. Now, you can hang it in the camp, or it's kind of big to wear, but it represents, I could teach a little on that. And I was telling Crow, when I upload these, I'm not doing them right away. But the first one's going to be, you're going to see Jimmy D. So I just want once a week to, just for everybody to see some of the friends of mine. Today, the reason we're here is Crow might get a truck, and I'm helping him charge a battery. I'm going to look at it in a little while. So hopefully, God willing, maybe he gets this nice truck, a Bronco, and, we're kind of just kicking back. I was going to bring some leftovers out, and I looked in the fridge, and somebody already ate them. So I made chicken and sausage yesterday. But a few scriptures, and if Crow and Claire have anything they want to share. We've been having a nice little fellowship out here. I know I'm in the sun. On the other talk I had today, I was just quoting from the prophet Zechariah, and I got to see Ralph. Ralph's an old friend of mine, and pray for Ralph. Pray for all the friends you see on video. And one of the things I learned from my friends, the other verse from Zechariah that I wrote, the prophet in the Old Testament, was, I just wrote it down to hang it on my wall, but it says, the leadership, it's a prophecy, it says, the governors of Judah will find their strength in the people. And I always remembered that, but I just recently wrote it. Right. So the leadership, meaning whatever your calling is, where is your strength at? Is it in today? I did a lot of typing on another post, a lot of work. But I'll tell you, if I just sat around teaching, writing, or whatever, I would not survive, because just teaching or reading, or which I do, I teach and I read. But if I'm not interacting with people on the street, I am, and sometimes people see me sitting around and I'm somewhat in a daze. But I'm doing better when I'm on the street than if I'm just isolated. So that scripture from Zechariah said, the governors of Judah, or the leadership in the church, they will get their strength from the people, from the inhabitants of Jerusalem, meaning God has called us to be out, interacting and reaching out and helping others. And if that's not an aspect of your life in some way, I would encourage you. I see my friends sometimes just different places, and believe it or not, it's the fact that they have other friends that keeps them going. They run into other friends, they see different people. That's life, okay? And if we're isolated in some church building or whatever, and we're missing out, okay? So I just want to share that. Now, if Crow has anything he wants to share, this is a good
I like what you said, because that pertains to her a lot. Like I was saying, her going to St. Peter's, and Brother Dave's and Brother Ray's and Timmons, and she has been slowly doing that. And I was telling her that whether you realize or not, you're a people person, and you need to go out and do that. And also, I was telling you earlier about how the posts on Facebook, I don't like them in general. I'd like to look back on them, but one of the ones I had was, recently I was telling her about it, is you take your significant other and you put her as high as you can so that no man can touch her, because if you beat her down, then she will go off with anybody who makes her feel better. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing. Like I've told her that I am nothing. I am absolutely nothing without her, and I've said it 100 times, probably more than that, and I've meant it every time. She makes me who I am because without her, there's a lot of things I just don't care about. I don't, I can't do. She makes me want to be a better person, and I mean that's what you're talking about is more, but it's the same way.
Yeah.
When you try and exploit the people who are put you where you're at or that you depend on, then you're right. You're destroying. It's being like cancer. It's being destroyed from the inside out. And the more you do what you can to help them and promote them, then the better off the whole. You get your strength from that. Even in business, it's the same thing. Lawn service. Beginning of the month, the senior citizens paying a small amount at the beginning of the month, where every month I get a large amount of money, but and I'm able to do more. Anyway, it pertains to almost every aspect of life you can think of.
Albert works for a home builder. He's very old. I think he's in his 80s. The home builder. Oh, what is it? Savoy.
Savoy.
Savoy. But Albert, and I have some good times with Albert, just hanging out with Albert. But Albert told me, John, he doesn't have to work anymore. He's real rich. He's made it. And I told Albert once, I said, but that's his purpose. Meaning you get the crew together, you're building, you're functioning, you're building. I said, so a lot of times people like Mr. Savoy and others, they don't have to work anymore, but that's giving them purpose, you see, because they're functioning, they're operating. One time I went out to the island, walking on the jetty, the new jetty they built a few years ago when they opened up the waterway, Packery Channel. And I just was talking to an old black guy that was fishing, and I told him, I said, yeah, I'm out here doing my walk. I told him I'm a retired firefighter, nice old guy. He said, and he was fishing. He said, I retired a few years ago, he told me. He said, and he did it for 1 week. And he said, when I was sitting home, and he said, I was like going crazy. He said, and I went after the week of retirement, whatever work he was in, he said he had to go back to work. But it just meant he had to be active, just sitting around without some type of activity. Your life, you feel like you don't have a purpose. Now, Claire helps.
With my SSI and disability, I hurt my back, and at the time I had 3 full-time jobs, and I had them for a year and a half, not a week and a half, and I was a workaholic. And my motto was always be the best at whatever it was you did, and I always did that. And since then, my life has been in the hands of lawyers and judges and doctors and such, and now I may be losing it, and it's going to be a relief, a burden, because I can actually go out and do what I want to do, and that's is work. I love that, what you're talking about, and it does give you purpose. It makes you feel what you're doing, because and that was why I worked at Jack and Jill, because I know how to do the physical work. I knew what the customers liked. I knew how to do everything, but I didn't know how to step out of it and let someone else run it and do it and in a good way, and who you can trust, and how you can motivate him and get him, because Mark is very good at that. He's a very good man, and I did learn a lot. I figured I would work at the tops 4 to 6 months for him, and ended up working a year and a half for him, and I loved it. And when I left, I felt like one of his sons, the way he treated me and everything, and there was no reason for it either, especially the way I started. I didn't want to get involved in his business because I figured I was going to be stepping out very quick. I didn't tell him I had a driver's license, I had any experience of any kind, and so I didn't have his respect. And I remember talking to you about that, I think, one time, and I couldn't blame him, because I give him no reason to respect me and all. And then things happened, and through working there, that had anything to do with work, and I earned it another way, and it was really something. And
Jack and Jill. Mark is the owner of Jack and Jill, he's been around for many years. So many of my friends worked on and off for lawn care, cutting yards, cutting trees. He's real successful. He's, like I said, he's had crews for years doing work in Flower Bluff, but I guess in Corpus as well, in town. But that's who Crow's referring to.
Yes, I'm very good at taking the business and working it, but I am going to get at the age where I don't want to do all the work all the time, and I would only do that type of work as long as I was able to do it, or not. You get tired of doing it, and you don't want to do it no more. You don't, then you quit. And so, I want to get the businesses going that I've had always in the past, but keep them going with someone else running them. And that's why I went to Mark's. But that's one of the things. It was like you were saying. The first thing people think is like, well, how can I pay someone to take over my job? And first thing you think of is pay them the lowest amount you can, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's not how you do it. You're drawing your strength from them, and so therefore, if you're empowering them, they're empowering you.
Yes.
And I learned from Mark about that very, very well. He was a very good teacher, or very good example of it.
Yeah.
Whether he realized it or not, I don't know, but he was. Sorry.
Claire?
Yeah. Crow sincerity talks about he's nothing without me. All I do to him is bring out the good person that I see, and I know that's in there. He's had it buried so long, that person. And little by little, he catches himself doing stuff that he would have never done before. He's walked in on church with me to surprise me, to sit during service. I'm Methodist, he's Catholic. And, things like that, he catches himself doing. And I said, because you're a good person. Now, I am a people person. And when I don't go out every day and check on everybody, I worry. They call me street mom, the homeless physician. I've sewed them up, stapled them up, took them out, and everything else. Buried them. They don't claim their bodies, I'll claim them, because this is my family out here. But Crow's got to understand, I've been doing this for so long, I know no other way. And he is a wonderful person. He's got to pay attention to that person inside of him. Not who he was in the past, because that's his past. This is who he is in the future. And if it's because of me is the way he is now, well, that makes me really feel good. And I've changed a lot of my stuff, the way I did things when I met him, because he means more to me than that. But y'all got to understand, he is a really good person. He just didn't want to see it, I don't guess. But little by little, he's understanding that he is somebody without me. He always has been. But if that makes him feel better to think he's, there's songs out there that says, I can't get into heaven without you. You're already going to heaven, buddy. You're already going to heaven. You're not out breaking all 10 commandments or anything. And we say every day, forgive us for our sins and the sins that we're going to do, because we're too stupid to know any different. And that's in my prayer every day. We're too stupid to know any different. So we're all forgiven. You just got to understand that everybody is a good person, but you got to let that good person out. You could be a butthole all day long, but you see a little 4-year-old girl comes up to you and hands you a little play phone. What are you going to do? You're going to take that play phone and say hello. See, get yourself doing that, because you're actually a good person.
His goodness.
Well, I got inspiration from her. She's kind of the Mark, so to speak, because I used to help people one-on-one, and I can do that, no problem. But just helping in general, very many people, there aren't enough of them. I mean, her friends, I don't like a whole lot of them, But she's still, and I'm not even sure she does, but she does take care of them and help them, regardless of how she feels. And that's one of the things she's taught me is the ability to do that, and to help people in general. And that's something not easy. That's something I didn't have a clue about, and I think I even told you at one time it was everything has always been clear cut with me, lit up and everything, and all of a sudden my path is black as night, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I just by association with her got involved in food bank, breakfast, Brother Ray's, Brother Dave's, and such, and saw how she does it, and I could see a better how to help more than one person at a time.
And look at the sign I got in the back. I didn't realize I do have. Here I am, I am the children God has given me. Whenever I'm with any of the friends. When I first came to the Bluff, because I lived in Kingsville, but I stayed on at Far House, and when I moved to Corpus, I just made the trip. I used actually a motorcycle back then. I got another one now, but I drive back and forth. But I remember we didn't know anything about Flower Bluff or the difference of Corpus or the Bluff, because I used to come to Corpus Christi just to go to the malls, but we just looked we needed a 4-bedroom house, which this one is. So we looked at the realtor, we used Coldwell Banker at the time. Said there's only one in Corpus Christi in the whole market that's for sale. I said, okay, well, let me go look at it. It happened to be here. So I said, oh, and I could tell I bought the house cheap because it needed work. I said, oh, I could tell this will be the best deal I can get. But then when I realized after like a month or two, I'd go out in town and I'd say, and I always worked with people, even back in the day in Kingsville. And I told my wife, I said, this is the best. I said, I got guys all over, there's homeless all over. I said, this is great. And she kind of laughed because like some realtors try to cover up that, oh, you might have some homeless population because they're just thinking economics and money. But I was like, oh, this is great. I don't have to go real far to find some people I can work with and all. So the mindset, and Claire does a lot of helping with all the different ministries and all. But to some people, I know that they look poorly upon it, sort of like, that's been going on for so many years out here. We're going to raid the camps. We're going to get them off the street. But in my mind, in the kingdom of God, even if you just read the Gospels, Jesus talks so much about reaching out to the down and out. And he was associated with the people that the religious people of the day absolutely wanted nothing to do with. In the New Testament, all those people were actually referred to as dogs. And now animal lovers, that's not derogatory towards animals, but the society in that day, they looked upon those that were sort of like the outcasts as, oh, we have to do something to get rid of them, we have to disassociate from them. And all through the Old Testament prophets, God rebuked the people for that mindset of, we are better than others. We are, upper class. We are. God is looking. He's looking at the broken people, like Charlie today was. Look, Charlie was broken. Pray for Charlie, who you're going to see when I put all these videos together. But that's really where life is. And,
one of the biggest examples, and I got to say this, I've told Claire this, but one of the biggest examples I've had of that in my life is you. Like I've told her that we've been together when I was doing things I should have definitely been ashamed of, but wasn't. Didn't have enough sense to know I shouldn't be doing it, or didn't care. I guess it'd be the best thing, but it didn't matter what I was doing, right or wrong, or cared or not. You never judged me. You never judged what I was doing or anything. And also when I did change, when no one else cared or didn't care, you're still the same person you were before and all that you did. And it's like I've told her that you are beyond reproach. Whether I can trust you with my woman, my money, my valuables, anything. You're beyond reproach. And when you look back at everyone there's a handful, very few people of that nature that is like that anymore at all. And whether it's a sign of the times or just the people that we know and are around, it's like there are good people out there, don't get me wrong, but and everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. But for someone to be as you are, that because a lot of people will tell you that I don't judge, and they're darn right they judge. It's human nature to judge and such, but you truly don't, and it's really something special. And I'll bet you $99 in your head. To you, it's probably not anything special, but it is extremely special, especially whenever it's someone who, like in my position, back when we first met, when I was trying to do good, but was not doing all good at all in my life. I was just, you know what I'm talking about, but you showed me, and you made me care. Even when I didn't care, you made me care. It's like she does. She makes me care when I don't care, and a person is only who they are a part of. There's the people they associate themselves with, and but as one of my other friends over here told me, you don't define yourself by the people that you're with. You are who you are, and if you define yourself because of who you're with, then you're never going to be anybody, and that makes sense too. He's one of the fellas, he's like you, he's aggravating as heck because he's always right. I mean, to the point where at one time I used to try and prove him wrong, and because he's just a man, he can't be right every time, and I would try and do so, and finally it's just like, well, why are you spending all your time trying to prove him wrong? And he's a friend, and he's giving good advice. It's never let you down. And it's like, I just had to learn to accept it, but that was just hard to accept. But I'm getting back to you. It's something very special, and I don't know if you're aware of it, and I know I've never said anything to you about it, but I have to Claire and my mother, and such, and it's true, and it means a lot. It really does, and I just had never told you that, and it needed to be told, and like you said a while ago, anyway.
This has reminded me. I use sometimes kid like one, but I won't. But this reminded me of something that just happened this week that would fit some of this. About 2 weeks ago, I was at the park and I was talking to Gary. Now, Gary's a friend of ours. I don't think Gary's ever been on any of the videos. But I won't mention the other friend's name, but they found a phone left at Timmons. It wasn't stolen. Somebody actually had left it out at Timmons. And Gary told me that he showed it to one of the other guys and said, hey, look what I found. Well, then Gary went inside to the Mission, to Timmons, and came back out, and the other guy said, where's the phone? And Gary said, oh, I turned it in. Somebody lost their phone. The other guy got mad and said, turned it in. We could have got whatever, $10, 15, whatever it was. It wasn't an expensive one. And the other guy got mad and said, we could have done something with that phone. It's valuable. And Gary told the other guy, he said, well, it was somebody's phone. Don't you have an honest bone in you? Now, Gary tells me that. I'm at the Mission 2 days ago, or yesterday, Timmons. Rick, who you actually saw in one of the videos that I did at the park, who got run over by a car, and Rick goes into Timmons, comes out and says, look at this. This is the phone I lost 2 weeks ago, and somebody turned it in to Timmons. I said, I know who turned it in. I said, Gary told me he found a phone out here. So it was just, I got to see, the result of basically Gary saying, in that instance, he said, I'm just going to do, instead of stealing it, which is common, a lot of people have their phones stolen at Timmons. But I told Rick, I said, no, Gary, he told me he found one, he turned it in. Yep. But it meant more to Rick. He was like, can you believe they turned it in? Then actually the cost of the phone, he just felt like that was so cool that they did right, just for the sake of doing right.
It's like that fella who lost his ID and wallet today. Remember, another guy was looking for him?
Yeah.
Turn it in. He's going to be doing the same thing.
Yes.
He's very upset about it. And how many times is people, IDs is a common thing to steal.
Oh, and that's a big problem.
And this guy, he was taking it a step further. Like he said, he had trust issues. He wasn't turning it over to anybody other than that guy.
That was the guy earlier on the other video. He was looking for somebody because he found the ID in the wallet and all. And I told him, I said, you might not want to trust me, brother. I said, if you want, I'll hold it and hand it in at Timmons. He said, but he didn't want to leave it there as well because he was afraid somebody was going to take it. Let's see, how long we go? We went about 23 minutes. A lot of the good examples and things that you see, to me, I find it interesting how God speaks.
You know how you say that a lot of people around here, messages come in different forms, in different ways, and a lot of people see them and don't realize what they are and stuff. And I've looked back on that. In fact, when you said that, and one of the things I looked back on was that video of her, at the store. And I remember you were doing her, and she was talking and everything, and then she walked away and stuff, and then you were asking me, well, you know her and stuff, and I was like, well, yeah, I know her. She's like you don't go against her. I said, she's like a ship. I just went in her wake and followed her ways, and it was all like, but it was like,
I scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, it was almost like you had you could tell that there was...
I knew Claire longer before Crow knew Claire, and I think they kind of really reattached and met on one of the videos we had done. And Crow's told me, I watched that video. I said, that's funny. They're all public, the videos. But I remember kidding Claire because that's how I am, and so I would kid Claire or something about it. But I knew, I know
I was
Claire.
telling her back then. I mean, when I looked back on it for the first time, I was like, look at that, John's asking me, about asking me about her, and I'm like, because at that time, my sister told me, you just stay the heck away from her, and I honored, I didn't, but that was the first time that yeah, I mean, we'd come across our path many times since then, but that was one of the few times it was, you know, a gathering and such, and you were just there, and then you left, and then you asked about it. I'm like, how did he know? I mean, you know, did he see in my eyes, or did he tell what? You know, how did he know there was any interest in her at all? And at that time, you know, yeah, I was interested in finding out if she was a good person or not, but other than that, there was no interest. But my path was getting narrower and narrower at the time and stuff, and so I didn't even have any idea that I was ever going to go and do any kind of searching with her of any kind of her, you know, and such at that point.
You don't have to.
But it was
Just
like
talk on the streets. Everybody will tell you how I am.
yeah, but
The ones that'll badmouth me are the ones that are just jealous because they can't seem to bring the good person out of them.
Oh yeah, I know, but still, I mean, it was like you had a pre-knowledge or something. It seemed to me. I was telling her that too, man. It's like, how did he know? I mean, you know, and it wasn't long after that that I showed up at the park, and even the day of the park, I had absolutely no intention of going into the park of any kind. Walking down Waldron and going to my sister's house. I never walked down Waldron and cut across the park like I did. I always went back way to the pavilion because that's where everybody I knew was there. But I didn't. I cut through the park, and you were sitting at the table with everybody else, and I never left. And it's very weird the way it happened. And unfortunately, my sister didn't get too mad about it. But
Crow and Claire are together. They're a couple. They're an item. I'll end this. So you got to see some of my friends today. All that pray, please, for all of the people that you see on my videos. Pray for all my friends. There's a lot of problems we have in society, but there are people that support each other, help each other, and I've seen some of my friends, even some today that you'll see on the other videos. They're at the bottom of their, you know, they're at the end of the road again. And they've been there before. And that's what's depressing to some in some of these situations. When some of my friends, not the ones you see them right here, but some of the others, they were doing bad for years, then they got better for a while, and then they're back at the bottom again. And I know they're there. And oftentimes their families and the people that they know, after so many times of having problems, their families often cut them off and say, that's it, you know, we want nothing to do with you. One of my friends, I won't mention, but for many years, he was homeless. You know who I'm talking about, but you might not right now, but you know the person. For many years, he was homeless. That's how I met him. And I just became friends with him because he was homeless. And he used to tell me, John, but I'm not into the Bible as much as you and all. I said, that's all right, brother. I said, we're just friends. And he would wonder why, like I used to take him out to eat back in the old days. But you know, a few weeks ago, I was visiting him. And he's doing much better. He's got a nice little rental house, and he bought him a new vehicle a few months ago. And he said, John, you want to ride in my new Jeep? I said, sure. So we spent the whole day together. But he took me down the street, not too far from here. And he said, that's my mom and dad's house. And of course, I knew my friend's story for many years, that he was homeless for many years. I said, well, how long have they lived there? He said, oh, ever since, you know, like 30 years or whatever. That's the family home right here where he has been homeless for 25 years. And, you know, he's told me some of the reasons why he's kind of reconnected with his family and all. But I thought, how strange is that? Your own mom and dad and the house you grew up in is right here where you have been homeless for all those years. And he told me also once in the past, that's why I won't mention his name, he said, you know, recently they told me, John, you know, don't forget, son, we love you. But the day I was driving with him, the day he showed me, he said, how the F could they say that now? After I've been living homeless right where they live for 25 years, times where I didn't think I would even survive. And I listened to that. And of course, the example is some of the families of some of my friends have disowned them. And it's so sad when I see some of those types of things, you know. And so remember that. I'm going to end in prayer because we went long. Father, thank you for letting Crow and Claire share. When we put these videos up, Lord, in a few days, I pray you'd speak to people through the testimonies and stories of my friends. We pray for all the people that we talked to today, that you'd be with them, strengthen them, bless them, be with them, deliver them from all the stuff they're going through. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.